Get a load of this!
Well, the Crown Tundra DLC is out now, and Pokemon Sword and Shield is now complete. Overall, it seems like a lot of the hatred shown toward this game early on has faded. Thank God, because that was getting out of hand. Game Freak lied! They lied! It was getting tiresome. The Isle of Armor was a fun tropical island adventure where the main story was to train a Pokemon by the name of Kubfu and eventually evolve him, and it was a really cool concept to have the story focus on one particular Pokemon, especially a new Pokemon. Crown Tundra now brings us to the exact opposite location, a snowstorm-ridden region, and instead of focusing on one Pokemon, it focuses on many Pokemon, specifically legends. You'll arrive at the Crown Tundra and meet up with Peony, who is trying to get his daughter to go on an adventure with him, but she wants nothing to do with him. This dude is super hyper and he loves doing this excited arm swinging gesture. I mean, what's wrong with this guy? He's spazzing out. His daughter will run off and you'll end up following them into the Max Lair, where you'll participate in your first Dynamax adventure, which is a gauntlet of Dynamax battles with Suicune waiting for you at the end. You can later return to these and do as many as you like, and you'll have rare Pokemon waiting for you at the end, including the Ultra Beast from Sun and Moon. I wasn't crazy about having to use rental Pokemon though. I mean, why? It does get me to use Pokemon that I never have or never would use personally, but it's a shame you can't just use one of your own. But I suppose it has to do with keeping the level scaled between you and the opponents. As you finish, you will meet up with Peony and his daughter, but she ends up ditching her father again, and you'll go on an adventure tour with Peony. The daughter shows up towards the end of your adventure, but she's basically non-existent for the rest of the adventure. I just find it weird how she basically just vanishes, like she's written in just for the point of making the point that Peony is overbearing and that you're basically the only person who will give him the time of day. You will meet Peony in a town called Freezington, which is having trouble growing their crops. Peony is a lazy bastard, preferring to stay at the cabin for most of the adventure. You'll receive a bunch of clues, and they're pretty useless, just a bunch of scribbles and hints with missing letters. And I guess that's the point, because Peony is a comic relief character after all. You will soon meet up with your first legend, and I felt like a total tool when I was having trouble finding the missing crown for the statue to make it appear, and it ended up it was right in the same cabin where the quest was first assigned to me. Wow, I felt beyond stupid. So, Calyrex is that first legend we encounter, which Peony points out has a massive noggin, and I love how he possesses Peony so he can speak with you. It's a running gag, and I really do appreciate the humor here. He's the town of Freezington's legendary king Pokemon from the past, and you'll have to reunite him with his lost steed, and you can decide what kind of typing on that steed will be by deciding where to plant the seeds to grow a carrot to attract it. Isn't it weird that a Pokemon is using another Pokemon to ride on? I just find this bizarre. In the process, you'll restore the town's belief in Calyrex, who is connected to making the crops grow. If you ask me, why not try growing your crops in a place that isn't basically Antarctica? You'll eventually get the opportunity to catch him, but I really had no interest in using him because I was happy with my team and even got the opportunity to catch an Espeon in the wild. Nothing like the classics, fellas. I just wasn't interested in having legendaries on my team for this generation, but of course I caught him anyway. This really is the main story because the rest is mostly a hunt. You will visit 4 different temples and capture the Reggies. What? No, not that Reggie. These Reggies. They are locked inside tombs with some obscure hints like the one where you need to bring an ice Pokemon with you and you have no idea which one the game is talking about by the way the clue is worded. I realize it's just a clue, but there's many ice Pokemon in the game, especially in Tundra specifically, to say the least. You'll eventually come across a new Reggie, and you can choose which one you want depending on the pattern you walk on the floor of the tomb, Regieleki or Regidrago. I went with Regieleki, and dear lord, I must have thrown at least 50 Ultra Balls at this bastard. I swear that pressing down and B on the controller just as the ball closes works. This has been a myth since Generation 1 actually, but I truly believe there must be something to this myth because it seemed to work, especially here. Nothing about the Reggie quest really thrilled me. It was basically a rinse and repeat process of finding the temple, figuring out how to open the door, and then capturing the Reggie inside. The best part about it is finding the temple, because it encourages you to explore the new area, and the Crown Tundra is a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing area indeed. I just love the appearance of the tundra with the snow and ice, it looks great. Probably my favorite part is when you get to the part of the tundra that doesn't have snow. And this is just odd. How does it just stop suddenly snowing in this one area? The wild area had a similar issue with weather conditions being totally out of whack, with invisible barriers where snow could turn to rain when crossing that threshold. So apparently the people of Freezington are having trouble growing crops. So why not grow them in the sunnier areas? I mean, this just seems a bit ridiculous. Did I just say a bit? I mean, very ridiculous. So you'll find a giant tree and run across the Galar forms of the 3 legendary birds from Generation 1, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, with different typing. They'll all fly off and you'll have to chase them down. Zapdos will take off to the wild area, Moltres will fly off to the Isle of Armor, and Articuno will stay in the Crown Tundra. Having you travel around to the previous areas is a nice way of tying the 3 areas all together, and it's quite frankly awe-inspiring to see these majestic birds flying around in the wild. Well, Zapdos actually runs around. Catching them is really tricky, and I found myself covering so much ground on my bike in hot pursuit chasing after Zapdos in a high-speed chase. It was quite exhilarating actually, and even though it's an otherwise brief moment, it's a good moment and a memorable moment. Moltres is a pain to chase down in the water, but if you just wait for him near the Tower of Waters, you can get in his direct line of vision. Articuno will duplicate himself and make you guess the real one before he'll agree to battle you. I've heard some players actually decided to leave these birds alone to observe their majesty, and that's kind of like the visual spectacle of the Whale Lord in the Isle of Armor, and I don't blame them. But to officially complete the story, you will need to catch them. So that's just what I did. Also, the music when facing off against the birds is fucking awesome. It's just a frantic, cool track that just sounds like you're combating a domineering force. After completing the 3 quests, the game will display the end, but you will get some post-game content as you then receive an invite from Leon to compete in the Star Tournament, where you'll compete in 2-on-2 battles, but chances are you'll be so highly leveled at this point these fights will be cakewalks to say the least. I really wish the scaling was a bit better because most people will be in the 80s and 90s by this point, making the battles just way too simple. After winning, you will get another end screen. Overall, I would say this is fun DLC, but it's definitely way more focused on catching Pokemon, and my favorite part was chasing after the legendary birds. But I've always been more about the adventure than the catching, to be honest, and the Isle of Armor wasn't a gigantic adventure either, but I did prefer the premise of training Cub Fu, but I think I might prefer the aesthetic of the Tundra. The Caliphate story is intriguing, but they could have went way further with the old legend concept, but they didn't, and it feels all too brief and unfulfilling, and it just results in capturing yet another legendary. I felt the story with bringing Cub Fu to his destiny and evolving him felt a bit more fulfilling in the end. As a whole package though, there definitely is more variety and more to do in Crown Tundra, and it does tie the whole Sword and Shield package together very nicely. For DLC, both the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra felt worthwhile for $20, and they offered many hours of entertainment and thankfully didn't just feel like rehashes of what was probably in the main base game. I would say Pokemon's first foray into downloadable content was a success. Well guys, there's my review. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all notifications when I post all my new videos. Guys, I want to thank all my patrons out there. Thank you so much for your continued support. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.